पर आज यही है। Khandanam bhava bandhana jaga bandhana bande tamai niranjanam nara rupa dhara niranjana nara rupa dhara nirgunam gunamaya mochana विचाय मानस वान निष्कारण भगत शरण निष्कारण भगत शरण तजे जाति कुल मान संपद तव श्रीपद भव गोष्पद वारि यथाय प्रेमार्पण समं दर्शन प्रेमार्पण समं दर्शन जग जन दुख जाय संपद तव श्रीपद भव गोष्पद वारि यथाय प्रेमार्पण समदर्शन प्रेमार्पण समदर्शन जग जन दुख जाय नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनातीत नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनातीत मन वचनैका धार प्रभु मन वचनैका धार ज्योतिर्ज्योतियो जल हृदय कंदर ज्योतिर्ज्योतियो जल हृदय कंदर तुमि तम भंजन हार प्रभु तुमि तम भंजन हार नमो नमो प्रभु भाग्यमनातीत नमो नमो प्रभु भाग्यमनातीत मन वचनैका धार प्रभु मन वचनैका धार ज्योतिर्ज्योतियो जल हृदय कंदर ज्योतिर्ज्योतियो जल हृदय कंदर तुमि तम भंजन हार प्रभु तुमि तम भंजन हार जय जय लंग रंग भंग बाजे अंग शंग मृदंग जय जय लंग रंग भंग बाजे अंग शंग मृदंग गायचे छंद भक्त वृंद आरती तुम्हार गायचे छंद भक्त वृंद आरती तुम्हार जय जय आरती तुम्हार हर हर आरती तुम्हार शिव शिव आरती तुम्हार खंडन भाव बंधन जड़ बंधन बंदी तुम्हार जय श्री गुरु महाराज जी की जय। ओम ह्रीं ऋतं त्वमचलो गुणजित् गुणेभ्यः नक्तं दिवं सकरुणं तव पादपद्मं मोहं कषं बहुकृतं न भजे यतोऽहं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो भक्तिर्भगश्च भजनं भवभेदकारीं गच्छन्तलं सुविपुलं गमनाय तत्त्वं वक्त्रोद्धृतोऽपि हृदयं न मे भाति किञ्चित् तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो तेजस्तरन्ति तरसां त्वयि तृप्त तृष्णां रागे कृते ऋतपथे त्वयि राम कृष्णे मर्त्यामृतं तव पदं मरणोर्मि नाशं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो कृत्यं करोति कलुषं कुहकान्तकारीं शान्तं शिवं सुविमलं तव नाम नाथ यस्मादहं तु अशरणो जगदेक गम्यं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ सर्वमङ्गल माङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी Narayanim Namostute Srishti Sthiti Vinashanam Shakti Bhute Sanatane Gunasraye Gunamaye Narayani Namostute Gato Dinarto Paritrana Parayane Sarvas Sharati Hare Devi Narayani Namostute Jayana Rayani Namostute Jayana Rayani Namostute Jaya Narayani Namostute Jaya Narayani Namostute जय महामाई की जय जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण देव की जय जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी की जय।
Hello, check. Namah Shri Atirajaya Vivekananda Suray Satchet Sukhaswarupaya Swami Netapaharine. So this lecture of Vivekananda, Maya and Freedom, we are closing in on the denouement, the central point of this lecture. If you, in several of his lectures, it's almost as if it's like a musical piece which rises to a crescendo and concludes with that. And it is that part of the lecture that we are approaching here. The name of the lecture was Maya and Freedom, or is. And so far, we have been dealing with this idea of Maya. And it is at this stage that we get to the positive aspect of this whole thesis, namely freedom. I'll read out this paragraph and then we'll come back to analyzing it in further detail. One curious fact present in the midst of all our joys and sorrows, difficulties and struggles, is that we are surely journeying towards freedom. The question was practically this: what is this universe? From what does it arise? Into what does it go? And the answer was, in freedom it rises, in freedom it rests, and into freedom it melts away. This idea of freedom you cannot relinquish. Your actions, your very lives will be lost without it. Every moment, nature is proving us to be slaves and not free. Yet simultaneously rises the other idea that still we are free. At every step we are knocked down, as it were, by Maya and shown that we are bound. And yet at the same moment, together with this blow, together with this feeling that we are bound, comes the other feeling that we are free. Some inner voice tells us that we are free. But if we attempt to realize that freedom, to make it manifest, we find the difficulties almost insuperable. Yet, in spite of that, it insists on asserting itself inwardly. I am free, I am free. And if you study all the various religions of the world, you will find this idea expressed. Not only religion, you must not take this word in its narrow sense, but the whole life of society is the assertion of that one principle of freedom. That voice has been heard by everyone, whether he knows it or not. That voice which declares, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden." It may not be in the same language or the same form of speech, but in some form or other, that voice calling for freedom has been with us. Yes, we are born here on account of that voice. Every one of our movements is for that. We are all rushing towards freedom. We are all following that voice, whether we know it or not. As the children of the village were attracted by the music of the flute player, so we are all following the music of the voice without knowing it. What is being emphasized here is that within our psychophysical system, there is a trace of something which is a-causal, not bound by causality, not bound by time, space, and causation. That is the locus of this subjective feeling of freedom in us. Anything bound by space, time, and causation is bound, but there is an aspect of our reality, of our psyche, which is not bound by that. And this locus is what needs to be investigated positively and vigorously in order to understand for ourselves what exactly this freedom is about. See, this particular paragraph, it started with this question, set of questions. What is this universe? From what does it arise? Into what does it go? As we mentioned last time, this is an echo of this set of questions or themes which arise in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yam prayanti abhisangvishanti. From that which this universe arises, or all these creatures, all that. Bhuta does not mean just individual creatures, that which has come into being. From that where has come into being all that we see around us, all that we are aware of around us. Yena jatani jivanti, in which all of this subsists. Yam prayanti abhisangvishanti, into which it melts away. What about that? And then the Upanishad says, Tat vijignasasva. Know that. Tat brahmeti tat vijignasasva. That is without limitation, without bondage. That Brahmana see, these are words, but they connote something to us. Bringanat Brahman, that's that which is great, large, all-pervasive. But here the connotation is that which is not bound by time, space, causation. In that sense, this understanding that we have of freedom, if carried out to the hilt, pursued to the hilt, culminates in an answer to the same question that was raised in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Now, when we hear this question, from what does it arise? Our instinctive reaction is to hunt for a causation within the framework that we are accustomed to thinking about, namely time, space, causation. So, when we are asked where does it come from, we try to trace back the trajectory of time and ask for events that happened before, within the framework of time, that led to what we see around us. A particular tree, it emerged from the soil of the earth using a seed, using the atmosphere, the oxygen of the atmosphere, the water. And so when we ask for causes from where did this tree come, we typically assume that the answer is to be given in terms of this causal chain, in terms of what preceded the tree within the framework of time. But that's not the question that is being asked here, because then the answer cannot possibly be freedom. That's not the question that's being asked in the Taittiriya Upanishad. The question that's being asked in all of this, see, all these Upanishads are an analysis into the subjective experience, not assuming this framework by which we try to understand the objective universe. Namely, when we have a tree, we have this assumption in us that all of this is to be understood in terms of time, space, and causation. we do not pause to ask ourselves the more fundamental subjective question, okay, I see this tree in front of me, I see this room in front of me. What is it in me that allows me to see this tree, to see this room? How does this room emerge in my consciousness? How does this tree emerge in my consciousness? The question being asked here, Yato va imani bhutani jayante, is not the first objective question. What is the sequence of causes that preceded the tree within the framework of time, space, and causation? No. The real question that is being asked is a subjective one. What is it in you? What is it in me that impels me, that impels you to see this tree in front of us? So once you start understanding these questions, not in terms of the causal chain that we are accustomed to thinking of things in terms of, not in terms of space-time and causation as we usually understand it, but through introspection, through a deeper understanding of how these images, how these ideas emerge in our subjective consciousness. In other words, turning the view within. That does not mean turning the eyes physically within, but it's essentially opening up a faculty for introspection. And then every experience becomes an occasion for inquiry, asking ourselves, where does this image emerge from? Where does this sound and the conviction it brings, the joy or the woe it brings, where does that emerge from? The answer here is being given as freedom, which means try to hunt for that answer from a certain starting point. That starting point is this subjective feeling of freedom in us. That which is not caused, that which is not caught in the framework of space and time. Yeah? In order to be able to turn one's view, so to speak, towards that reality within us, this is not something that is esoteric. This is not something that is mystical. It's a common experience of all human beings. This sense of freedom in us. When we say that we know this tree, the question that is being asked is not what the tree is, but what is your subjective meaning of knowledge? What do I mean when I say I know? Where does this knowledge arise from? Not the tree outside. Our sensory system jumps and conflates the objective with this subjective sphuran, this subjective spark in us. That subjective spark is the locus where we need to find answers to these questions. You can give it various names. When we say that we are asking for truth, or we are seeking knowledge, or we are seeking freedom, some kind of an ultimate quest, but that quest is something to be sought for in our consciousness, not outside. Or if it is to be sought outside, then the outside is only the starting point. The next faculty to be brought to bear is this faculty of discrimination, viveka, analysis. In this knowledge that we have of the tree, the room, the carpet, another person in front of me, what is common is this idea, I know. Where is this I know located? When I am saying that I am feeling happy, joyful, or I am feeling sad, sorrowful, Where is that locus of I am feeling? Feeling, and then there are objects of that feeling. Joy, sorrow, woe, etc., etc. Knowledge, and there is an object of knowledge. But what about the subjective thing? That knowledge, what do I mean by I know? What do I mean by I feel? What do I mean by I am convinced that this is true? More generally, what is that? What does it even mean to say that something is true? It is these fundamental subjective questions and the human psyche, the common human psyche behind all of these subjective universal experiences that this is supposed to inquire into. When I say that I have a sense of freedom, what does it really mean? It does not have to be formulated clearly in terms of words, but can I catch hold of that in my consciousness? Then I have a point to start. Usually, because our view is guided towards objective reality, we therefore posit a personal God, because we cannot forget that we as individuals are persons. So we posit a personal God who is beyond this framework of time, space, and causation. And then any of these methods of meditation, either in terms of a personal God or in terms of awareness, what we do is we try to focus our attention on some locus with these deeper, more fundamental ideas. So, if our usual way of thinking is caught up in this framework of time, space, and causation, we posit for ourselves a being which is beyond it, and try, because we are accustomed to thinking in terms of name and form, we attribute to such a being these qualities. Just now you had this Aratrikam, Sampada Tava Shripada Bhava Goshpada. Excuse me. Sorry. So, this particular aspect, Sampada, that means that which is of value, is Shripada. That means, does not mean just your feet. It means that which you stand for. Pada, we often connote it as feet. But the literal meaning is very often that, a rank, right? Somebody is occupying a pada. That means a certain upadhi. That upadhi of freedom, of love, of knowledge, yeah? These higher values attributed to a being. And then what's the obverse of it? Bhava Goshpada. That means that bhava, we usually translate it as the world, but literally it comes from this word bhu, that which has happened, that which has come into being. So the world is all that has come into being. Goshpada, what is the connotation? It does not have value. Sampada means that which has value. And so the question again becomes, what is it of value in my life, in my existence? What is it that I hold valuable? So all these basic ideas, what is of value, what is freedom, what is truth, what is knowledge, what do I mean when I say I feel? Yeah? All these fundamental questions which basically lend some kind of some meaning to our day-to-day experience in the world, this kind of Vedantic enquiry basically exhorts us to catch hold of that particular aspect of our psyche as the positive aspect of our being, as that which is valuable, and inquire into it so that that which is of value encompasses our whole consciousness and there is nothing left. This is the process that is being This is the process. This is the process of Vedantic inquiry. And what is the obverse of it? What's the converse of it? That which is not this is not of value, is not true. See, when the Vedantin says that something, that Jagat Mithya, he does not mean it's false like a statement which is false. Today the sky is purple with blue stripes. That's a false statement. That's not what the Vedantin means. He means that this Mithyatva, yeah, it has to be understood in terms of our subjective awareness. It is not of any lasting value. It brings simultaneously, why would one be interested in the truth? Truth is something that would be of lasting value. It is something to which if we devote our consciousness, consciousness itself absorbs the qualities of that truth. See, the word Satya in Sanskrit has the same root as Sat, that which is. So when you start asking what is true, you're really inquiring into isness. What do I mean when I say I am? Where is this I am? Everything else, the tree is, the building is, this room is, the fans are. All of that rests on this first conviction I am. But where is this amness? This isness is the same. The inquiry into the statement something is really leads to the inquiry into truth. Meaning, same thing. What does it mean to say that something means something to me? Meaning is always in terms to be understood in terms of something that is of value. That's this statement. Whether you phrase it in the language of analysis or you phrase it in the language of devotion, sampada tava shripada bhava goshpada variyatha, doesn't matter. But it is this central conviction that one is being exhorted to catch hold of and inquire into. So when we say that Jagat Mithya, it basically means that that which has come into existence cannot be of lasting value. It is going to emerge, as he said here, emerges from that freedom which is not bound by causality, not bound by space-time causation. It emerges from that, it plays around, it subsists in that. Yena jatani jivanti. And then it becomes tat pravisang vishanti. It melts away into that. Where does it emerge from? It emerges in our consciousness. It stays in our consciousness for some time. It merges back into our consciousness. That consciousness, there are different aspects of this. You can call it consciousness or knowledge. This is the chit aspect of the inquiry. Or you can call it an inquiry into truth. This is the sat or isness. Yeah? Or you can call it in terms of your feeling, love, bliss. Yeah? This is the Ananda aspect. But these are various aspects. These are various aspects of a subjective reality that one is inquiring into. And when we say that Jagat Mithya, it means that there is no permanent value in any of our objective experiences. What is of value is that momentary subjective experience. It could be one of truth, it could be one of bliss, it could be one of existence itself. So the process is to inquire into this conviction, into the locus of this central fundamental conviction, not through means of space-time and causation. Okay. Essentially, a mirror of this is given in Madhyamika Buddhism as well, when they say that reality is shunya. See, shunya means empty. Sometimes we translate it as zero, but that's not a happy translation. It really, the connotation, the subjective connotation should be one of emptiness. What does emptiness mean? Again, it's not that a glass is empty. It means empty of substance. You look at any objective tree, it gives you a certain subjective feeling, but that objective experience is empty of lasting substance. Viewed this way, the notion of shunyata in Madhyamaka Buddhism particularly, and the notion of mithyatva in Vedanta, the connotation, the subjective connotation it is supposed to spark off is exactly the same. What does one gain from it? Once one has understood for oneself the impermanence in Vedantic language, or the lack of substance of this empirical I, source of all our trouble, we become free. Free in the sense of this particular lecture. This empirical I through which we interact with the world, which is what gives our day-to-day meaningfulness in our life, does not have any permanent substance. This is the enquiry towards which we are being pushed. So, the substance, the locus of all our subjective experience, naively, is this empirical I. Inquire into it. Inquiring into it basically says that, oh, there is nothing. It is just something that is an ad hoc reality that we impose on ourselves without enquiry, without asking questions of it. We react instinctively to preserve it through our body, through our mind. But we do not bother to enquire whether there is any real substance behind it. What am I investing so much time, effort, energy to preserve? Is that something that is going to last? The I that was there when I was 20 years younger and the I that is there today is something that is attributed to a certain body. The cells of the body have changed. But what about this feeling of I? When we think of it as confused, conflated with this set of body and this complex of body and mind which keeps changing. But then catching hold of this empirical I is of no real use, because that's going to keep on changing. It is not a locus of permanent experience. What is it that lends value to it? This deeper enquiry is therefore what one is being asked to look into. And it is here, that aspect of this, the empirical I is caught up excuse me, in this framework of space-time and causation. How does it emerge from all of it? What is it in that empirical I that makes it crave freedom? The thing is, as soon as it tries to deal with things in terms of the empirical world, of the existential world, Maya, as he's talked about here, basically says that it is bound. Why? Because we are trying to experience that freedom through limited being, through a limited aspect of our being, that which has come into existence, but that itself is an aspect of something which is caught within space-time and causation. So that which is caught within the space-time and causation cannot itself hunt for something beyond it. But there is in our consciousness some aspect which is not caught. This problem, this particular problem of what is it in us that makes us know, what is it in us that makes us experience, in relatively recent times, couple of decades back, has been formulated by somebody who is a philosopher, cognitive scientist called David Chalmers, as the hard problem of consciousness. See, essentially, consciousness, or that which we call knowledge, that which we call truth, is always understood in terms of something that is an object of truth, something that is an object of consciousness, something that's an object of knowledge. What does it mean independent of all of this? This is not something that we have a paradigm to understand. This problem, enunciated this clearly, is exactly what is called the hard problem of consciousness today. There is no resolution, but there is a process. And that process is, okay, fine, you want to understand this problem, but not in terms of any objective ramification. So then how do you get hold of it? Well, there is something deeper in us which points a finger, as it were, to something that is free, something that is true, something that is knowledge, or something that is the essence of all our feeling. Start there and basically focus the mind towards its origins, but not the origins within a framework of time, but in terms of how these things are emerging in our consciousness itself. This is the meaning of self-enquiry. What is the truth? I mean, for those who are more theistically inclined, for those who are more devotionally inclined, what is the truth behind this object on which I meditate or on which I think deeply? What is the reality behind it? What is the truth behind it? See, even in Sri Ramakrishna's life, there is this incident where he receives sannyasa from his sannyasa guru, Totapuri, and he asks him to meditate on this Vedantic truth, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma or Aham Brahmasmi, one of these Mahavakyas. And he says, yes, I could. I mean, this is how he reports that event, that incident, that he was able to gather his mind together because he was an expert. He was completely practiced in this, what we call upasana, focusing the mind on one conscious reality. And that happened to be the image of the Mother Kali on which he used to meditate. He tried several times, but then gave up and said essentially that, look, I cannot bring myself to go beyond this image. This image covers my whole consciousness. It captures my whole consciousness. Totapuri is supposed to have become very excited. He said, Kaise nahi hoga? How on earth can it not happen? And you know, some of you must be knowing the rest of the story. He picks up a little piece of glass and pokes it at the middle of Ramakrishna's forehead and says, concentrate on that sensation. It's very important. Concentrate on that sensation. Not an anecdotal collection of images and feelings, but just the sensation itself. And Ramakrishna responds that once he concentrated on that, and when the image emerged, he used jnana, as if knowledge or discrimination as a sword, as a khadga, and essentially said that no, he says he cut the image in two. What does it really mean? It means he's asking, what is the truth behind this image? And so the image is not some ultimate truth, ultimate in the sense of our conscious seeking of something within ourselves. And that this enquiry then proceeds, and there were no other obstructions left, and his mind was completely immersed or merged in the essence of that knowledge, in the essence of that truth, in the essence of that bliss, which the earlier image was a symbol for. The symbol is lost, the truth content of it remains. And it is this merging of this mind in that truth which they are seeking. Yeah? So, even in the life of somebody who we typically attribute as this great devotee, there is this enquiry where above everything else, truth is valuable. What is of lasting value is truth itself, not a symbol. Not a symbol of that truth, but truth itself. And see, the word truth is again, it's a symbol of something. What does it connote to us? And can we proceed in that enquiry? This is the process, this is the subjective process that needs to be, that's at least one really solid, dependable way of getting a satisfactory answer to this hard problem of consciousness. What is consciousness in and of itself? Not caught in terms of any objective reality, not caught in terms of its ramifications in the external world. And if we have even a partial answer to this, swalpamapi dharmasya, swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Bhaya, fear, comes from this. It's basically we lose something that is dear. But even a little of this practice basically says, okay, there is an aspect of ourselves that we cannot lose. That death which destroys everything cannot take away. And it is there if the I is identified. Trayate mahato bhaya. It's basically that fearlessness comes to oneself. Which is why Vivekananda said that all these Upanishads, they teach one thing and one thing only: freedom from fear, fearlessness. Free, that he or she that is free has nothing to fear because there is nothing to lose after that. Okay, so we'll come back to this next time. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna.